In the last 50 years, Europe did not build a single company from the ground up worth more than 100 billion euros. Not one. In that same half-century, the United States built 6, worth more than €1 trillion each. Same 50 years, same internet, same computers, same smartphones. America built giants. Europe built nothing that size at all.
Look around Europe,
And none of this seems true. These are some of the richest, safest, most pleasant places human beings have ever built. And that is exactly the trap. Europe isn't collapsing in a crisis you can point to, it's declining in comfort. Slowly, quietly, politely. And here is what nobody wants to say out loud. Nothing happening to Europe was done to Europe. No invasion, no foreign plot. Europe broke itself, on purpose. One reasonable-sounding decision at a time. Because under all the separate headlines, the pension fights, the factories closing, the tech that never arrives, there's one disease wearing 5 masks. A single instinct, repeated for 50 years in every capital. Protect what already exists. Block whatever is new. Protect the pensioner. Block the worker. Protect the national champion. Block the startup. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And you'll watch a rich continent talk itself, very reasonably, into decline. It has already cost one government its job, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
so we're going to do an autopsy.
5 wounds, and they get worse as we go. 1, the clock that's already ticking. 2, the engine that's stalled. 3, an energy policy that worked like self-sabotage. 4, a market that's secretly rigged against its own members, the one that will surprise you most. And 5, the wound no government on the continent will touch, even though everyone can see it. Start with the clock, because if you're under 40 in Europe, this first one isn't economics. It's a bill with your name on it.
Wound 1.
Europe is running out of the one thing an economy actually runs on: people who work. A European pension isn't a savings account. The money taken from your paycheck this month was paid out this morning to someone who retired last year. It only works if enough workers are paying in. In 1960, 6 workers stood behind every retiree. Today, 3. On current trends, 2 by 2050. 2 people covering 1 pension, where your grandparents had 6. That math is already breaking budgets. Germany now spends close to 1/3 of all the federal tax revenue it collects, about 128 billion euros a year, just to hold its pension system up. And remember the government I said this had already cost? In December 2024, the French Prime Minister was thrown out of office. The first French government brought down that way since 1962. For trying to cut a deficit an aging state had blown wide open. A government died over the arithmetic of getting old. There's a fast way out of this. Every economist knows it, and we'll get to why Europe refuses. Because it's the 5th and ugliest wound.
So why can't Europe just grow its way out?
Wound 2. Because the engine that's supposed to outrun the clock has stalled. Growth comes from doing more with less, productivity. And here, Europe's story is genuinely shocking. In 1995, European workers were about 95% as productive as Americans, neck and neck. Today, they've slid back below 80%. Europe caught America, and then went backwards. Not for lack of brains, Europe invents constantly. It just can't keep what it invents. Between 2008 and 2021, nearly 1/3 of Europe's billion-dollar startups moved their headquarters abroad, mostly to the US. Only 4 of the world's 50 biggest tech firms are European. The continent grows talent and then exports it, a farm team for Silicon Valley. And the gap compounds. In 2002, the EU economy was about 15% smaller than America's. By 2023, measured at market exchange rates, 30%. An economy that's aging and failing to grow has one move left. Don't actively make it worse. Europe couldn't manage even that. And here is where you feel the pattern. None of these wounds is an accident, and none is really separate. An aging budget, a fleeing startup, a closing factory, same reflex, protecting yesterday at the expense of tomorrow, just aimed at different targets. Europe isn't suffering 5 problems, it's running one operating system. Watch it run.
Wound 3.
The self-inflicted one. To run a factory, you need cheap, reliable power, and European factories now pay 2 to 3 times what American or Chinese factories pay for electricity and 3 to 5 times for gas. That's not a market, it's a slow eviction notice for industry. And much of it was a choice. Germany switched off its last nuclear reactors in April 2023. Low-carbon power it could have kept. After a decade, treating cheap Russian gas as a safe, permanent foundation. When that gas vanished in 2022, the bill landed everywhere from Italy to the Netherlands. So the companies that built modern Europe started leaving. BASF, the largest chemical company on Earth by revenue, German since 1865, is cutting thousands of jobs and shutting energy-intensive plants at its German home, while pouring 10 billion euros into a new site in China. German industrial output has been shrinking since the 2022 energy shock, down 4.5% in 2024 alone. Factories don't make speeches, they move. You'd think Europe would fight this with everything. It does spend a fortune trying, and that money is where the story turns from sad to infuriating.
Wound 4.
The single market is quietly rigged, not against outsiders, against its own members. Everyone believes the EU is one level playing field, 27 countries competing fair. Since 2022, quietly false. When energy prices exploded, Brussels relaxed the rules and let governments subsidize their own companies. Sounds reasonable. Look who could afford it. Of roughly 672 billion euros in state aid approved under the crisis rules, Germany and France took 77%, 2 countries that are barely 40% of the EU economy. The richest members bankrolled their champions, while everyone else watched their firms get undercut by their own teammates. The rules meant to protect the level playing field now tilt it toward the strong. And when politicians do spend on voters, they often light the money on fire. Italy's super bonus was forecast at 35 billion euros. The scheme alone blew past 160 billion, and with its sister credits, Italy's renovation bonuses reached about 220 billion euros, close to a tenth of the entire Italian economy. To pay homeowners to renovate houses they already owned, leaving the state with a vast bill and little lasting growth to show for it. Protect the powerful, reward the politically useful. Which brings us to Wound 5, where Europe applies that exact same logic to human beings. The wound everyone can see, and no government will touch.
Wound 5.
Remember the clock. 3 workers per retiree sliding to 2, and a workforce now on track to lose 2 million people a year by 2040. There's a fast fix, the only one that works in time. More people, working, paying in. And Europe is sitting on them, already inside its borders. Let's kill the lazy version of this story now. The OECD finds immigration's effect on a country's budget is small, within about 1% of GDP either way for most countries. And whether it's a plus or a minus comes down almost entirely to one thing: whether those people are allowed to work. This is where Europe sabotages itself on purpose. In Germany, asylum seekers were barred from working for months, then left in limbo. A doctor who arrives finds their qualifications judged separately by each of 16 states, a maze that can take years. The result? Non-EU-born employment in the EU is 65%, against 71% for the native-born, a gap mostly manufactured by the system itself. Europe turns the taxpayers it desperately needs into the welfare cases its politicians then campaign against. Because the dysfunction pays, not for the country, for the people running it. A blocked, angry, unresolved fight over migration is worth more at election time than a quiet, working solution. Across the spectrum, the incentive is identical. Harvest the resentment, never fix the machine. The broken system isn't a bug they can't solve. It's a product they keep selling. So, 5 wounds, all self-inflicted, all the same disease. Is Europe simply finished? Here's where I have to be honest with you, because the doom merchants are about to lose the plot. The loudest version, Europe is dying, it's over, is wrong, and the data says so. Serious economists argue the decline is overstated. Europe is still immensely rich, lives longer than America, and the gap shrinks once you count what that money actually buys. Measured on a like-for-like purchasing power basis, that 30% gap is closer to 12. And the best evidence is this. The children of the migrants Europe failed are quietly closing the gap, catching up in school, employed at higher rates than a decade ago. The cure isn't theoretical, it works, wherever Europe lets it. Which means the decline was never destiny, it's a decision. And that's worse. A continent dying of bad luck is a tragedy. A continent talking itself into decline, on purpose, while holding the cure. That's a choice it makes every single morning.
And it isn't only Europe's to watch.
Every rich society is aging. Japan, Korea, China, and yes, America, all heading for the same warm. Europe just got there first. It's the test case for whether a wealthy democracy can do the obvious, unpopular, necessary thing before the bill comes due. Right now, it's failing in slow motion, and the rest of us are taking notes.
50 years.
0 giants built, while America built 6. And that number was never really about American genius. America didn't have better ideas than Europe, it had a place where ideas are allowed to grow up. Europe had the talent. It just kept choosing to protect what it already had, instead of building what came next. And it called that caution. Europe didn't fall behind, it walked. Next time, the country quietly winning while the giants leave. Subscribe, and I'll see you there.